Hey, I just thought I would do a video today on some African and Madagascan stuff. This is my third try. I should add a disclaimer on my videos, like you may need a Dramamine. I'm so sorry about the shaky production, low production value, bad lighting. You know, I'm just working with a tablet and limited mobile app editing software, so I apologize for the production value, but it is what it is. This one I just picked up. It's unusual to me for an African, so I got it. It's got these really cool yellow flowers that are upside down. It looks like little, kind of like clamshells, and it's got 2 bloom spikes, so it should bloom soon. The blooms are weird. They I suppose if you were to look at it with like a time lapse, the moving spike would look like a spinning tendril, but so that should bloom soon. It's cool. I just got that at what's his name's last open house, like maybe 2 weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks now. It's been at least a week. This is another African I just recently picked up, maybe 4 or 5 months ago. I got this from the Gold Country Orchids. He's on Instagram, based in, I think, Sacramento area, and everything he posts online is for sale. But I got this from him. It was in a little basket with moss, and I took it out and mounted it on this piece of wood. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce their names, so I'll just edit in their names later in the video. I take down my shade cloth in the wintertime, so it did get really bright light and almost burned, but got real light and yellow colored, and the lighting is so horrible in this video. The transitions between my environment and this tablet is horrible lighting when you're changing from light to dark, but it kind of got yellowy, and I stopped fertilizing with CalMag during the winter months, so it's only received maybe 2 or 3 applications of CalMag, so it should turn green and lighten up now that the shade cloth is up and is receiving CalMag regularly. Also, like, a good point is you should be fertilizing throughout the growing season, and typically for most species and plants that's going to be spring, so I fertilize typically most everything from March through November, and I give the winter off. But some stuff like is the exception. I will fertilize a plant mostly when it's in active growth, so some stuff grows more fall and spring when the temperatures are more intermediate, and some stuff is winter growing, so I'm always mixing something up, fertilizer and CalMag for something. Africa and Madagascar. This is another Madagascan orchid I got from my Orchid Society. I rarely take home plants from my society because I'm real picky, like, on plants I bring home. I don't know, a lot of this stuff to me looks questionable. Like, it has damaged, infected leaves, and possibly virused and yellow and mottled foliage, so it looks like it's either virus or like magnesium deficiency, nitrogen deficiency, and so I don't even... If there's a plant I really want and it's given to me or offered for free and it looks sick or old, I'm like, you know what, I'll pass. But I'd rather buy a plant that looks healthy and wait if it's something I want, and just because it does matter, like, the material that you start with. If you start with a declining, sickly plant that's like infected or virused, you introduce things not only to your collection like virus and bugs and pathogens like Fusarium, but you also you're not setting yourself up for the best success because you're working with a plant that's stressed and declining, so it's going to transition less readily into your conditions. But yeah, I'm real picky on plants I add typically. This is another African, but possibly Madagascan. I just got this one also from what's his name's open house a week or so ago. So it's relatively new to me, but from all the information, it should fit right in well in my climate. So we'll see how this one does. I always say that, like when I get a new stuff, I'm like, I hope it makes it. But typically I have a good success rate. I think I've only killed 3 or 4 plants in the last 2 or 3 years, so not too bad. I try to do a little bit of research first and try and only add stuff that's like at least 90%, 80% adaptable to my climate. Although I do grow some stuff that is not supposed to go below 55, and everybody says so, the internet, growers, everybody on Facebook, but it survives 33 here, no problem, when it randomly dips that low, but never any frost. I'm in 10 zone, I'm in hard zone 10B, so no frost. But also Florida, South Florida specifically, like Miami area, is also 10B, but that's determined by the minimum received, not the maximum. So they're more like warm tropical, we're like more cool intermediate on the west coast. So I'm 10B cool intermediate, Miami is 10B warm tropical. Anyway, this one's really hard to, besides the bad lighting and my horrible shaky videos, this one's really hard to photograph because it's so small. It's got a little bloom spike on it. I got this one a while ago, maybe last year sometime at, what's his name's open house. The flowers are not that great, but I thought the plant overall was like really interesting, and I love miniatures, so I added it. Why not? And then I've had this one at least maybe 2 years, maybe longer, 3. It's a Mysticidium in bad lighting, so you can't see the crown or the spikes. Let me try to hold the camera still and lighten it up. Horrible production value. But it's got some spikes. It should be a nice cascading bouquet this year, just like last year. I have another one back here. You can maybe see the spikes. A lot of them I will get a duplicate of for multiple reasons. I like to compare individuals and how they respond to my conditions. It's funny, like one will do real well, one will grow slower. Sometimes they both do really well. And then that way also I add a little bit of like redundancy and diversity. So like if one randomly dies or something happens to it, I have a backup. And also it would be nice to, in the future, you know, I'm not at that point yet. I do get randomly pollinated by, I think, majoritively those little small hoverflies. I see them a lot, but a lot of my smaller species with smaller flowers get pollinated by them, and I've gotten several seed pods, but I never flasked them because who knows what they were cross-pollinated with, because I would have multiple species open at the same time that are compatible and can breed. So who knows what the babies would have been if they were open pollinated, but eventually I might try and set pod and send it off to a lab and get flasks and make babies. I don't know, or even make hybrids. I don't know. I have enough diversity to make, I think, some really cool experimental hybrids. And from what I'm learning from talking to other people is, I guess the pollinia, the little sac, can actually be stored for a little while. So I could take pollinia from one species that blooms in fall and save it till spring and pollinate a spring blooming Australian dendrobium and make a cool hybrid. So I might do that later too. I'm not really into hybrids, but there is some attraction to the ability to like come up and make your own shit when you have a diverse species collection with compatibility. So that might happen later. I don't know. I'm trying to think. There's got to be another Oh yeah, more Africans. This one I got maybe December or fall, either at his winter open house or the fall open house. Another African, it's really cool, from Kenya. I know that. It's got these trippy white flowers with like a little yellow orange button like nose on its in the middle of the flower. It's cool. It just finished blooming actually. When I bought it, it had a itty bitty little spike forming, and it developed and bloomed and then faded, but it was a sad bloom. It had a short spike with maybe 6 buds, 3 maybe blasted, and it only ended up with like 3 flowers. But it was stuck at the time in dark, complete shade in winter, so maybe didn't transition well and didn't bloom as quite as well as it could have. But we'll see what's up. This is another African with bad lighting and small and hard to focus, but it's a seedling I just picked up last year, fall or winter, and it's a seedling, has not bloomed yet, which is totally fine with me because I have most likely a fresh plant that does not likely have virus. Younger plants are less likely to have virus, although that's never a guarantee because it really depends on who's handling the flask and who's mounting the babies up. The handler can always transmit virus if they're not practicing proper hygiene, so you never really know, but I trust this grower and all of his seedlings are on point. I like the growth rate of a seedling that they have to quickly establish themselves. So when you're transitioning a plant to your conditions, seedlings typically are going to transition better. So I prefer seedlings for a lot of reasons. They grow up in your conditions, they transition easier, they're less likely infected. And I like to see them, you know, under my care grow and bloom. So there's like some reward in that process. But here is another Mysticidium hiding back there. Horrible video. Also a seedling, and hard to film in a bad spot with dappled light. Has not bloomed yet. Hopefully it will soon, but you never know. That other one I got from Gold Country will probably bloom first, as it has multiple head leaves, rosettes, and is a larger plant further along. But whatever. Bloom in your own time. You're cool either way. I don't really trip on if they're gonna bloom or not, because I know they will. Guaranteed. The three things you typically need to bloom an orchid, and where people fall short, is at least one of them sometimes is first, you really do need bright light. You'll see recommended for like stuff like Cattleya, like on AOS information website, you'll see like a recommendation of like 2,500 foot candles of light, and to me that's too dark. I grow under 50% shade cloth, so I get 4,500 foot candles to 5,000 foot candles. So I grow everything very bright. So you got to grow stuff right on the edge before you burn it. Grow it bright as you can, and it will bloom really well. Second, you need to achieve its seasonal changes. Most orchids that are not equatorial lowland, that have a constant, even warm climate, stuff from like the Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn and high altitudes, typically have a cool down in winter, and at least sometimes with a dry spell. So the majority of stuff is going to have a colder, drier winter. So a lot of species are going to need to hit like 55, some even like in the 40s, and some of them are going to have to go into the 40s and be kept on the dry side. So you need to like trigger the plant through like seasonal triggers. And then third, you need to be fertilizing well and have a healthy established plant. Having a healthy established root system is really crucial, because that's what's feeding the plant and keeping it, maintaining its health and hydration, and bringing in nutrition to help with the energy production and storage of energy to bloom later. Also, for a lot of species, what helps is if you have a 10 to 20 degree difference in drop of temperature at night. If you have a cool down at night, a lot of these plants need that drop, because that way they can stop the respiration process, and they can use that energy to store carbohydrate. So you'll get more energy storage if you get a cool down at night for better flowering. So a lot of species, like especially stuff from high altitude, I know a lot of the stuff in the Cattleya Alliance appreciates a cool down at night. So, you know, give it a lot of light, give it its seasonal requirements, fertilize it properly, and, you know, try and give it a little bit of a cool down at night if that's what it is wanting and used to, from like where it lives, like at like 1,200 meters, or like inland at like the Tropic of Cancer, you know. So it's gonna get that cool down, and it's gonna get that drier winter. But some stuff, it's like random. Oh, I forgot another African species that's really cool. I'm not even gonna try and pronounce it, and I'll just edit in the name. It's dormant right now. I just repotted it. It's a Madagascan terrestrial that's deciduous, and it drops its leaves in the winter. But what's different about this one is it's temperature tolerant down to 33, and it likes water year round. So don't let this dry out. So you have to water it when it's cold. So it's one of those weird ones that likes cold and wet. Like it could be sopping wet in 33 degrees for a couple days and no problem at all. I do not keep it like constantly soggy wet. I water it and then I let it almost dry out, but not quite dry. I don't let it ever dry out hard, but I do let it approach dryness, and then I'll water it again. And because it's in moss, I don't fertilize it, especially a larger chunk of moss. I don't fertilize it as often as mounted stuff or stuff in rock that drains fast and is easy to flush, or mounts with a minimum amount of moss, because it's easier to flush out. But moss is going to hold on to the most nutrition and sodium and all that. So use clean, pure water so you're not accumulating shit like carbonate and sodium and fluoride and all that bullshit. But so you're not burning the roots and creating an alkaline environment by accumulated carbonate. But I feed it maybe once to twice a month with calcium CalMag plus, and then twice a month with NPK nitrate, orchid fertilizer. So it gets fertilized regularly, but not as much, so it doesn't accumulate and I don't have to flush it as much. But it is from a boggy, wet area in Madagascar, so I'm assuming it's used to more nutrient-rich conditions because of the boggy, constantly wet situation it's in, but I don't know. It's I'll edit in a photo of the plant in active growth so you can see the foliage, and I'll edit in an image of the flowers when I bought it. When I bought it last year, it was in bloom and in foliage. So I'll edit in those pictures so you can see the plant and how cool the foliage is and the flowers. Okay, so I think that's it for African shit. And thanks for putting up with the poor production value. If you made it this far, congratulations if you learned something, because I think my average click rate is like 1 minute, and like my average video is like 5 minutes, and like the average watch time is like 1 minute. So like people click on, they're like, ugh, and then they click off. So if you finish this and get to see this, congratulations, especially if you learned something. Goodbye.